to ensure the well-being and upkeep of the children. This government remains committed to finding solutions to the myriad of social issues faced by the population, child abuse being one of the most critical, as it involves our children, who in many instances have little or no voice in the said situation. Whilst we have accepted the findings of the report, and as responsible citizens of this country, we are also disheartened by it. But we are satisfied that the objective of the exercise was met. The determination to get to the bottom of the matter so as to better understand and treat with it appropriately is being done. We assure the population that as a government, we remain resolute in this objective, and with the support of all stakeholders, will continue to ensure that continuing action is taken to strengthen the country's child protection systems in keeping with our national and international commitments. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, while we understand the emotions that ran high when the matter was laid in the Parliament, we also understand the political aspect of it from those who seek to make political mileage out of it and to call for the government to stop feeding the children and to stop funding the agency. That is just not a sensible way. What I've outlined here to you is how a serious and responsible government deals with a difficult issue. That is what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. The other matter I would like to deal with is the matter having to do with allegations made against a member of the cabinet. And those allegations largely made and propagated from the political platform of the UNC, of all places. Ladies and gentlemen, I appointed Mr. Foster Cummings as a senator under the authority that resided in the office of Prime Minister. I did that in September 2015. And he, during the period September 2015 to August 2019, was a senator in the government. During that time, he also conducted, as he was free to conduct, his private business, because as you know, if you're a senator without any portfolio, like a parliamentary secretary or a minister in the ministry, or a minister with a full portfolio, you in the parliament, our parliament is viewed as part-time unless you get ministerial appointment, and people are free to conduct their professional or commercial business. And that applies to Mr. Cummings too. Matters not that he's PNM, or that he's the general secretary of the PNM, or that he's any kind of person. On the 27th of December 2019, Mr. Cummings was appointed a parliamentary secretary, and he retained that position and ministerial position appointed in 2020, 2021, up until now. So the fact of the matter is that if one starts to hear about the actions of Mr. Cummings in the government and business and so on, you have to be careful that you look at what period you're talking about, whether being a senator and doing business, or as others saying that she's a minister and doing business, and all of those possibilities exist in the conversation, and sometimes it could be very far from the fact. In the recent carryings on of the UNC, experienced and inexperienced members were calling out to me to take action and asking loud questions about whether I am aware of certain wrongdoings that they are being exercised by. And while I was tempted to ignore them in toto, I'm of the view that I'm not supposed to allow the public to be so exercised by the irresponsible conduct by the overambitious. And that is why today I've brought this file just to see this. When the UNC made the first set of allegations against Foster Cummings, it had to do with some loan that was paid off and the loan in somebody's eyes was viewed to be, must have been coming from some bribe somewhere, and the UNC went up and down every ear that would listen, feeding that into it. And as Prime Minister, I heard it. And I also got certain information from some other quarters, but I do not ignore matters that fall to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in conducting the affairs of this country. I've been in this office now for almost 7 years, and that has been my record. So when those allegations were being made, I asked for the facts. And this folio in my hand are documents that presented the facts of the first set of allegations. One of the sources of that allegation initially came from observing police, something called Special Branch. And Special Branch, as you may recall, is an arm of the police service. Just bear that in mind. So if something comes to me from Special Branch, by logical extension, it is coming to me from the police. And therefore, when I look into it, and I get the documents and the facts, and the matter is with the police, if there is something for the police to act on, then I would expect that the police will act on it, because it is the police that would have been informing me. And if there was nothing for the police to act on, and if I see nothing in these documents to support the allegation, then I have no basis to take any action, but to regard it as yet another instance of the UNC spreading misinformation and personal attacks in this country, setting about to damage who they could damage, hoping that it will work in their favor. And that is what happened the first time. I can't speak for the police. And if there's any matter lying dormant with the police, it is for the police to answer. But what I can tell you, I have seen documents that give the lie to what the UNC was saying. So time passes, and of course, another set of allegations, a different package, came up recently. And it came up, and this time they were sure that this is going to be damaging and it's going to cause the government pain, because you know what? It came from a Special Branch report. And I dare say that the average citizen in this country would be open to being misled by that approach. Because one, it was coming to you from a former prime minister, from a party that was the government of this country, from a lawyer who is in the Senate as an independent, as an opposition senator, and wherever else they could propagate it from. So the average citizen could take the position quite reasonably that this is something that the Prime Minister must act on. And even you in the media, I'm not to tell you how to do your work. I try hard not to do that. But when a responsible person presents a document, and the main engine of driving that document in this country is that it is a Special Branch report, and you in the media don't even ask or even put in your story, what about the content? To what extent are the contents substantial and accurate and factual? But you saw the Member of Parliament saying, we have a Special Branch document. Have you ever seen a Special Branch document yet on a platform? We have it now. And that is true. Because the Special Branch, an arm of the police service, because the police service has sections. You have mounted branch, you have court and process branch, you have traffic branch, and so on. And you have Special Branch. Traffic branch deals with traffic. Special Branch deals with special. Mounted branch deals with horses. Special branch is just a very unique arrangement which was put in place in 1954. 1954. A direct link between the police service and the head of the government of the country. The special branch reports police work, observation, report directly to the Prime Minister what they observe in the citizenry, in the population, from a national security interest standpoint. There are times when the special branch would report to the Minister of National Security and the Prime Minister, and there are times when they will not put that report to the Commissioner of Police. Special branch, for all practical purposes, reports to and advises the Prime Minister of situations in the country. Since Dr. Williams is Prime Minister in this country, we had Dr. Williams, we had George Chambers, we had Patrick Manning, Basdio Pandey, Patrick Manning, and A.N. Robinson as Prime Ministers, and you had me for the last 6 or 7 years. Have you ever seen any of the persons I just mentioned, either directly or egging on anybody to come to you with a special branch report? Just cast your mind back. To the best of my knowledge, what Senator Jayanti Lal just did the other day is the first time that I can recall, or I know of, a special branch report on a political platform being used to agitate the population as though this is evidence of wrongdoing on the part of a minister, or anybody for that matter, and the Prime Minister must act. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, yes, we have special branch reports, and I get reports from time to time. But the interesting thing about special branch reports is that the reports are graded, meaning you take it with some condiments or some salt, depending on who is saying it, where it came from, and so on and so on and so on. So it's an initial alert. It's called intelligence and intelligence gathering. But it by itself is not evidence. It has no place in court or no weight in court. And therefore, a special branch report being said as the basis on which the Prime Minister must act, and I have not seen any, and the Prime Minister is protecting the party General Secretary and protecting the Minister, that is just misleading and not true. Not true at all. A responsible Prime Minister will know two things. One, take special branch as intelligence, distinguish between intelligence and evidence, one requiring further investigation, and of course there may be times when it may contain matters that may have a place in court. But all the Prime Ministers I mentioned except Kamala Prasad Bisesa had always seen it fit to treat special branch report in a particular way, except now, where a former Prime Minister gets a special branch report, knowing what value you can place on it, and give it to an unfortunate underling who has no guidance in a career to go on a platform jumping up and down and calling on the Prime Minister to act and want to know if the Prime Minister see the report. I may very well not have seen it. I may have seen it. But the bottom line is, you're calling on me to act. Act how? Let me ask you all something. If a report is coming to me from the police about, and it's a secret report because all special branch reports are stamped secret and confidential, for good reason. As I told you, it could just be an arbitrary observation. It could be I saw something and I think so. It could be I bounce up somebody in a bar and I hear so. That's what it is. Secret and confidential, requiring further investigation. But if you listen to my colleagues from the UNC on the platform and elsewhere where they spend the time, these are the same people who would accuse me of interfering in police work if I direct the police what action they should take against any citizen. Because if the police gets information about a citizen conducting unlawful business of any kind, the Prime Minister has no role in telling the police how to act on that evidence or even that information. So what you calling on me to act to do what? To tell the police what to do? And if I do that, you will be the first one out front to say the Prime Minister, as they are saying now. There's one particular individual in the camp now saying, using the police, accusing me of using the police to do political business and to do business in my favor. So when it suits you, you call on the Prime Minister to act on special branch intelligence, uninvestigated, unconfirmed, but act against the individual because he's a PNM. That's their view. And of course, the people who generated this disturbance last week, one self-appointed senior council opposition leader, and the other one, a lawyer, senator in the parliament. These are two people among the small group of people in this country who should know. Even in the Interception of Communication Act, which was passed in the parliament, in their presence, and I dare say with their support, they know that Section 6 of the Act prevent what they carry on with, you know. Because Section 6 deals with intelligence and with judges' input. It recognizes a distinction between information and evidence, and Section 8 is warranted and can be used in a court of evidence. Now, the law is there to allow certain things to happen and to prevent some things from happening. These two individuals are lawyers. One claimed to be senior counsel. And what they're doing there is unnecessarily, willingly, knowingly creating mischief in the country, so as to create an environment that may serve their purpose. Let me make it very clear here today. I am defending no one against whom any allegation is made. Because members of my cabinet will tell you that they know, and I tell them from time to time, where matters of integrity and honesty are concerned, you're on your own. Every tub will sit on its own bottom. So I'm not here defending any individual. I'm just talking to you about institutional arrangements in this country which are being undermined by a desperate opposition that will do anything to anybody if they believe it will help them. Because the reason why these continuous stream of baseless allegations come from the UNC, because the very latest one, you would have heard Mr. Cummings describe them for what they are. There are about 5 allegations in the package in the special branch thing. And Mr. Cummings, who was the person against who the allegations were made, he spoke to you. I don't know of any contrary information than what he put forward. But for some people, the fact that allegations are in a special branch document is good enough to be one side, and the other side is what the minister has said. But for me, I could only deal with the investigated proof. And I can tell the country, as of today, I have seen nothing to confirm what the UNC has been waving on that platform. And just reading it, Like, I'm hearing, okay, let's take one. He used his influence to get work at the HDC. All right. How? I thought you in the media would ask that question. How is the influence used? And when we get the answer to that, we will know if a law was broken or there's a matter of integrity and ethics and so on. How? So somebody, some nameless, faceless person say he used his influence to get work at the HDC. And of course, the way they talk, getting work or being in a company that gets work is a crime as far as they're concerned. I told you before, Mr. Cummins was a senator for years. Free to do work, free to have his company, free to look for work and get work. I don't know any crime involved there except on a UNC platform. And if an allegation is made about any of that, it is being made by the police in a police document, and then we expect the police to act on it. To call on the Prime Minister for on a matter that has not been confirmed or substantiated. And to the extent that I heard Mr. Cummins' press conference, you heard the UNC first say the 3 pieces of land in central Trinidad. I have seen reference to 3 ownership. 1, directly from the HDC as a citizen. I don't know any law is broken there. And 2, properties owned by people who had got them from the HDC and put them on the market many years later, purchased by Mr. Cummins' family. That is what the investigation has thrown up. But of course, somebody put it in a special branch report, saying that you thief 3 pieces of land and you want the Prime Minister to act. Now, other allegations have been made, which have been denied. I have seen no confirmation of them, but they're in the right place. They are in the police hand. And if the police cannot confirm any of that, to me, as they do, from time to time if they can, then what am I supposed to act on? And since you are here, members of the media, in person in front of me, over and above those who are listening on the radio, you could tell me what I should act on and what action should I take under the current circumstances. Under the current circumstances. Allegations made, information presented, not evidentiary, not confirmed, still in the police hand if they still have it or have an interest in it. Because I told you, what is in special branch is not necessarily in an investigative point in the police. Because special branch doesn't, there's no substance called special. There's something called traffic, there's something called mounted horse. No, but special branch is just that. It does a special assignment of keeping the top of the national security, namely the Prime Minister and the National Security Minister from time to time, alert to situations that may be developing or may have developed. And therefore it is reckless for a former Prime Minister who herself would have received many special branch reports about the conduct and behavior of many citizens. And I dare say today, I never once saw her telling this country, I am acting on a special branch report. And finally, I want to say one thing. They don't stop at one arm of the state. I see the member for Orapooch has written to the Parliament asking for a parliamentary investigation into a special branch report. I want to ask the member for Orapooch if that request is only to be confined to that singular special branch report, or did he make a mistake and not invite the Joint Select Committee to ask for, receive, and investigate in public every special branch report involving any member of Parliament? Ask him that when you see him. If it is that he's only interested in that report that Mrs. Jayanti, the senator went to, if that was the only one that he's interested in, he must say so. If he's interested in others, he must say so. And then we would have moved the country's order from where it was to where he wants it to be. Because you see, if I was not a responsible prime minister, and I wanted to play that game with them of destroying the country to save myself, as they say, I could simply bring the bundle of special branch report that I have, and many of them, and throw it in front of the public. And we have one big bacchanal, he say, she say, he say, she say, and in the middle of it, he say, she say, will be the police that cannot substantiate much of what it has said, or can substantiate it, and then we will know a barley grow. Because I could tell you, there are many members inside the parliament who are in front of the police, facing serious police investigation for serious criminal conduct, including the last special report that I got. And the reason why they're behaving like this is for one particular purpose. As the wheels of justice turn and the moving finger writes, they want the public to believe that all of us is the same thing. So make as many allegations as you want against the Prime Minister and any number of ministers and create this callaloo of corruption. All of we is the same thing, all of we thief, all of we get assets from there. That's what's going on in the country right now. But I have absolutely no fear of that. Because in my government, if any member of my government, including myself, have a problem with the law, then the law will and must take its course. And I defy the UNC to say the same thing with a straight face. Imagine the leader of the opposition accusing me of not being able to talk or not wanting to talk because I have PIP. There's no prime minister in the history of this country that has ever been more forthcoming to the media than me. I have spent so many hours in front of the media taking your questions to exhaustion. You have an opposition leader who must be 7 years now, she never take a question from the media. Stays home in the house, peeping behind her nightie, making mischief, accusing people left, right, and center in the most ridiculous ways. Even when they Photoshop PNM or Helekona documents, they go on platform with it. And you, the media, you are not in a position for years to ask the opposition leader a question in response to what she has put out or what you know she should be putting out to you. And you're quite happy with that. But every stupidness they come up with on a Sunday or a Monday, there's demand for the Prime Minister and the government to act on the PNM. We are the PNM, you know. We are not a fly-by-night pick-up side in any rum shop. You know, we are the PNM. We know when the Prime Minister should talk and what about. And I think it is not sufficient for the media of this country to be an echo chamber to a hiding opposition leader. Because if you want to deal with public business and make yourself public and available to the media, don't send out, unfortunates to come and make a fool of themselves and then call on the Prime Minister to act. And unsuspecting citizens would believe that the Prime Minister is somehow engaging in dereliction of duty. Since I have become Prime Minister of this country and I have a colleague and an opposition leader, I could count more than 2 fingers or one hand the number of times I've seen that opposition leader in a position where the press could put questions and get answers from her. Every Sunday, rotate the unfortunates to come and raise some issue to disturb the country's psyche. Because as far as they're concerned, if the population believes that all of us have been dishonest, all of us have issues with the police about our conduct in office, then it will lighten the burden and dim the light that shines on those who have done so. And I want to reiterate and repeat, I make no defense for anybody in my government or in my party, because we are all individually responsible for our conduct in the context of the oath that we have taken on an individual basis. We have not taken a group oath. Every single one of us took an oath one by one, and we are responsible there. But when you come in the way that they have been doing, trying to fool the public that there's some demonstration of confirmation here, and there's some hiding of something there, until the police prove otherwise, I too, like you, will want to hear what they have to say. Because the documents that I have don't support what is being said there. And then, if you want to know whether the Prime Minister acts when he hears things about that, the answer is yes. That is how I have this pile from the last set of allegations. Because I didn't just ignore it. And I could tell you, had those allegations been found to be correct, there was no way that they would have gone unattended by the Prime Minister. Not like what happened in Mayaro, where under the same opposition leader now who asking for a certain standard and a certain action from the Prime Minister, you had a man in Mayaro charged for bribery, chairman of the corporation, charged by the police, not allegation, you know, not special branch report, you know, charged, arrested and charged for bribery. And the leader of that organization failed to act. You have another one in Sandy Grande, charged, arrested and charged. You've not seen him. He's still there. You have a number of them in the courthouse, right? Facing serious allegations with questions to answer, pretending it's not so. They're still your advisor. You have questions being raised about hundreds of millions of dollars that were unaccounted for under your tenure, where documents have been altered so as to allow people to go with taxpayers' money. No interest in that. Stay home in your house. Get up whatever you shake off your stupor. Make any allegation. Send it to the press and let the press rattle it around for a week until the next one comes next Sunday. That is what's passing in this country. I am busy. I have work to do. I have a country to run. And I don't intend to spend a lot of my time wasted with people who should be talking to the police and have the gall to be raising questions about whether the Prime Minister knows. As if I would know that there's criminal conduct in the cabinet of the PNM and I will defend it. That is not our record. That is not our purpose. That is not our station. And this population knows that. And that is why they hold the PNM to a higher standard. Thank God you do that. Your confidence is not misplaced. If you have any questions, I take them now. Yes, Jules.
Because as you said, there's this sort of interesting arrangement with the special branch as it reports directly to the Prime Minister, as you said, but also is a part of the police service. What are the measures to ensure that it doesn't go in a direction where it shouldn't? In other words, because you said the Prime Minister ought not to give operational directions or instructions to the police.
There is no link between the Prime Minister's receiving information for national security and any impropriety with respect to the independence of the Commissioner of Police, who is the authority in directing police action of all kinds. Okay? And I guess that is the reason why those who put it in place decades ago and those who used it many times ago call it special branch, because it is doing a special purpose. If it's the blind leading the blind, you could easily go over a cliff. Somebody saw it necessary to have investigators look at what is going on in the country and keep the Prime Minister informed of situations. It's merely situational in most instances. And very many citizens' names come up in those reports. But they come up, as I said, in a graded way. any of you who want to talk to anybody who knows, if you're receiving intelligence, the first thing you need to know is what is the quality of this. Not that it is on paper. That doesn't give it any quality. Sometimes it requires longer, deeper, and additional resources to answer that question. What is the quality of this information? But if you are anxious to slander people, and if all you see is political points, then you will do what they're doing here now. Because I pointed out to you, previous prime ministers, including this opposition leader, when she was prime minister, I cannot say that she abused special branch reports. And I'm pretty sure that she used to get special branch reports, because the special branch reports to the head of the country on an ongoing basis. Not every day, not every week, not even every month. When they think there are things going on that or are heading in a certain direction that the head of the government should know. And that has been put in place long time ago, and for good reason, especially for matters of national security.
The document, as had been displayed and referred to by the opposition, the special branch document that they had referred to, did that give you a cause of concern as to how they received it?
Well, any information, that level of information, if I hear that smallpox break out down Port Spain now and 10 people drop down dead, I am going to be concerned about that information. But the next step is it true? Is there substance to that? Where it came from? Check the records. What is the hospital saying? What is the DMO saying? So the first pass being used on a political platform like that is driven by malice, because it is aimed at an individual who you want to get at. Okay, quite. Foster Cummings is fair game. He's a politician. He has a seat in that they desperately want to win. He's a minister of government. You want to bring the government down. Okay, fine. But it does not change the fact that the information that you are using to get your end is questionable. Which is why you, the media, may want to do a little more work, because the information has a number of huge question marks in there. Right? Ask Foster Cummings, what were you doing in business? Why were you in business? Why your family have a business? Ask him that. Ask him, how did you use your influence to get contracts in HTC? How did you? Those are the questions that need to be answered. You end up with more than one piece of HTC land. How did you get it? And maybe if you ask those questions, which is what is usually necessary after you get these branch reports, questions. And that's why they're secret and confidential until those questions are answered.
Do you maintain confidence in the secrecy and confidentiality of the special branch reports?
I am not going to pass any judgment on special branch work, but I could tell you I know how to treat with it. I know how to treat with it. As all responsible prime ministers before me and in other countries know how to treat with it. What we see here is people who should be kept very far from public business. Because they're pretending to be doing this nonsense, caring for the public, when in fact what they're doing is tearing down the country's institutions and creating disquiet among the population. That's all they're doing. You go ask any prime minister in any country if this arrangement exists, where the head of the government responsible for the state and state of affairs in the country is fed information, whether it's MI5 or MI65. The government needs to know what is going on, and when you get that, you behave responsibly with the information, because the information could even be very wrong.
From Guardian Media. You said that very frequently the opposition makes unverified claims that seeks to just create bacchanal. Some might say then, why do you pay so much attention to it, and why don't you ignore it and focus perhaps on issues like that?
You cannot ignore it, because if there's fact to matters raised by the opposition, the government has a duty to know that. And the population, if they get their information from one unverified, one unfiltered source, they would be misled. So I can't ignore it.
Do you think the opposition has a political relevance right now? That if they make a
That is not for me. That is for you, the voter. Everybody in this country has relevance. As long as you're not breaking the law, whatever you engage in, you have relevance.
Prime Minister, when the retail National Security Minister described the crime situation as horrendous, how would you describe the current crime situation?
I would say unusually horrendous. I can't recall a period of time, a matter of weeks, seeing the viciousness of crime, frequency of crime, in and among family members, out on the street. I mean, it is just a while ago I made a comment that we are a violent society. And apparently there are some people who are attempting to prove that statement true. I mean, some of the crime that is, coming at us on an hourly basis, a lot of it, you have to ask yourself, what are these people thinking? And those who pretend to know before they think and do it, this is fooling you. We have serious, serious social difficulties in this country. And we require a number of interventions. We have interventions, but certainly they aren't enough. This week, I spent quite a bit of time, and last week, going through my constituency and meeting our young people, the youngest of them in school. And I always, when I come home, I always tell my wife, I feel so energized, so good when I go and meet these first year, second year, standard 1 children in the all primary schools, because they're all angels. And it makes me feel so good just being there with them. And the question I come away with is, what happens to these angels by the time they get to a particular age and older? Where is the angelic being? Something is wrong between them and there.
Prime Minister, are you convinced that enough is being done to tackle crime at the highest levels of the
You could never do enough. Because as long as the crime is going on, there's need to do more. As long as these criminal instances are going on, there's need to do more. None of us could say, well, we've done enough, so let's wait for the result. We have to just keep doing more and more and more and more.
But specifically at the top of the criminal totem pole, the so-called gang leaders, the people who bring in the guns, the drugs, the people without a name.
There's nobody in this fight against crime, nobody is getting a pass. If you know your family members have illegal guns, you're not getting a pass from me. If you know your friends on the block that you spend the day with, not looking for a job but planning the next crime, you're not getting a pass. If you know an elderly person getting a pension and living their days quietly and comfortably in a house, and you know who broke in that house and killed that old woman, you're not getting a pass. So at my book, nobody gets a pass in this country. The crime fighting is concerned.
Prime Minister, to follow up on Joshua's question, is it time for, regarding the spate of largely domestic killings, is it time for like a national conversation on the state of us? Becoming out of the COVID, very stressful for everybody.
It might very well be, because when we were going, but again, before COVID, we had similar kind of behavior, so we can't blame COVID. Let us not take that shortcut. COVID must have contributed to some of the anxiety and so on, but it's not an escape hatch. And what you just said there, the observation that people were having mental stresses as a result of what was imposed upon us by COVID, yes, but did we have an alternative? Did we have an alternative? So we got to take it in stride and do better. But I'm not seeing the COVID fingerprint, you know. And the ones that hurt the most are the intra-family violence. Because household and family, that is the castle. And for those of us who grew up in communities where the communities looked after the individuals, especially young people. I grew up with my grandparents, and I knew all my grandparents' compeers, their associates. And there were instances of kindness, instances of care, instances of scolding that made me what I am today. And when I ask myself, when did we lose all of that? And when did we create the people who are now prepared to say, I have a reason for what I'm doing because I didn't get this or I didn't get that? Yeah?
Would you have like discussions with colleagues on this, like an inter-ministerial committee to discuss where are people, as you said?
From time to time, because it's the center of this is the National Security Minister and his team. We have a National Security Council. We have thousands of men and women who go out there every day at their job, on the job, doing what has to be done. We have the experts providing certain kinds. But you know, we, just before COVID, in response to what you have said there a while ago, we had come to that position of saying, could we not or should we not have this kind of discourse? And we had just organized, the police was actually doing it, the new minister was organizing it, and we had an external expert who was coming here to help us with a conference. And the root of that conference was violence as a public health issue. Because violence in our society is now a public health issue. It's not an erratic, passing, now and then thing. It seems to be a feature of human behavior prominent in the society where large numbers of people are willing to participate to the detriment of larger numbers of people. Typhoid and malaria and other things are public health issues, and they have to be dealt with as public health issues. Violence is now a public health issue in society. It's not only ours, because this conversation that I'm talking about, I had it in another Caribbean island with a former colleague of mine who's an expert in these matters. Because they too had the same problem. And the experts were saying the time has come to designate violence as a public health issue and treat it as such. But I'm not an expert, so I would just rely on what they say on these matters, but facilitate it. And I think we're going to go back there and have the national conversation elevated from, you know, blame the man and blame the officer to how do we as a society make interventions protecting the young. I started out today talking about abuse of children. Who abuses an unfortunate child, who finds him or herself as a ward of the state in a home funded by the state, funded by the taxpayer, and all you could find to do is to abuse that child? Who is that? And then when a member of parliament is trying to make issue of the fact that it's $80,000 per child, that only proves one thing, that he might be able to divide, do long division or short division. The cost of looking after a child in the system of state care is far more expensive than helping a family with a child at home. Did you all know that? I'm going to ask the minister to bring that information to the public so that you can be properly informed and not be exposed to the behavior of an irresponsible member of parliament. Once you have to look after one child, the infrastructure to look after that one child, the payment structure. As a matter of fact, I had to intervene a while ago because there were orders in place and arrangements in place where each child in an arrangement had to have his or her own psychiatrist or counselor. And I'm saying, well, how could taxpayer be asked to do that? It's not a cheap service. If we have 100 children in a home or 50 children in a home, how you could ask me to have a separate arrangement for each child? But that's what the expert says. But when you look at it on the books, where the expenditure is, you will see the kind of cost that is going down. And of course, increased costs are required to improve what we have now. If you think what we have now is not sufficient and is bad, it will cost a whole lot more to take it to the level that you want to take it. And of course, even as that proposal comes forward from the minister, it's being attacked by the opposition as it is something unusual and out of the ordinary. All I can say to the country, you have a responsible government in office. You have responsible ministers in office. You have responsible professionals in care out there. Be careful where you get your information from. Because there are those among us who, like the perpetrators, who will feed us with damaging information in the hope that it works for them.
Can I ask, the report, the recommendation on the children's homes, I'm trying to get a feeling of the sense of urgency. There were some recommendations that the security guards at particular homes, named homes, they had been directly involved with. And they,
well, in a case like that, Sean, if you are able to say that, then clearly that is a matter for the police. If any individual has so exposed him or herself to be identified in that way, whether it's security guard or cook or butler or caretaker, if you have done anything where there's evidence that you have done that to a child, I expect that the police will be dealing with that. And the report has made certain recommendations, and we expect that those recommendations, as I said earlier on, will be acted upon. We are acting upon them. Some already been acted upon. Some you are preparing to act upon, but we have not let the issue fall through the crack.
My question is, apparently there was a report by Dr. Robert Sabga about 25 years ago, and I remember reading in a weekly paper 40 years ago, one of the weeklies, of abuse in the same St. Jude's. And the question is that it seems to be like a long-standing issue, or the potential for it. It recurs. And so, are we now being just proactive? Are we now being reactive? If we're waiting for like a particular police report against a particular person, when we should be more proactive and have things like a children's ombudsman, have a board of governors for each of these houses, and so on?
Well, I wouldn't say that we. Let me rephrase that. As we seek to rectify what shortcomings exist, we are being reactive because it exists and we have to react to it. But we are also doing a number of things that are proactive. Right? And some of the recommendations are to put some of those proactive things in place so as to prevent. But you must remember, the environment, by its very nature, creates opportunities for the kinds of wrongdoings that have come to light by the investigation. That, unfortunately, is true in the household in some instances. Not just places where children are in care. In households where there are loving mothers and fathers, uncles and nieces, that environment, certain kinds of things go on in there. And sometimes we hear about it. And when we hear about it, it drives us to be concerned as to what is going on. It's an environment. So to be proactive, you try and not have the environment in which this could happen. And if you have the environment, then you become more sensitive and become more careful in monitoring it to ensure that abuse does not permeate the environment on a permanent basis. And if people are responsible for abusing in the shelters or in the homes with the loving ones, then at the end of the day, where there's wrongdoing, we fall back on the police to take action.
So I just wanted to get your thoughts on the possible exclusion of Cuba and Venezuela from the upcoming summit of the Americas. Yeah, your thoughts on the possible...
My thoughts? Our thoughts, my thoughts, and which are the positions of Trinidad and Tobago, is that we all know our geography. The Americas run from the Aleutian Islands in the north all the way down to Tierra del Fuego. And if you say it's the Americas, there are a number of countries in the Americas, from Canada all the way down to Argentina, Chile. And we have a summit of the Americas. Our position is that it should be all-inclusive. It shouldn't be exclusive, where you pick and choose who comes to the summit, because the Americas are all of us. Even though we may have different styles of government, or our circumstances may be different, it is the inclusivity that would give us the ability to work with one another and help each other. That position is not shared by all, right? And we are currently trying to see how many persons we can get on board with that the Americas mean all the countries in the Americas. Certain actions have taken place with respect to some countries. Cuba, has its difficulties with the United States, has its blockade, its sanctions, and Venezuela, Nicaragua, and so on. Sometimes it moves to other countries, but now these are the three countries that are out there with difficulties. And if the host country is saying, well, you all can't come to it, then we believe that is not the right way. Some people have raised that, and it is being discussed. It has been discussed. I can tell you, before I came here, the reason why this meeting is late, we normally meet a little earlier, is because there was a CARICOM heads of government meeting at midday. And we discussed this matter, and we are still discussing it, and people have different views. And we are trying to come to a consensus position, because we'd love to have a CARICOM position, but sometimes it's difficult for all of us to see eye to eye on everything all the time. But at the end of the day, we hope that that the idea of the summit is not lost, and that the existence of the summit is realized, and we all benefit from it. So that's where we're at the moment.
Prime Minister, if there's not a CARICOM, a consensus among CARICOM heads of government, what would be the position of Trinidad?
Well, if there's not a consensus by the CARICOM heads of government, well, then there'll always be the individual positions. I wouldn't tell you, I wouldn't at this stage tell you what Trinidad and Tobago's position would be then, because that would that is going to be prejudicing any attempt by CARICOM to get consensus. So we're working on it. Maybe in the next few days or so, we'll be clear as to what the position is. We've been talking to the various countries, as you know, or may not have known. I'm not sure whether CARICOM had made that public. And to deal with this, when it just came up as an issue, CARICOM has asked 3 prime ministers to talk to the United States about this matter, and I was one of them. And last week I was in Washington, and I did speak to a number of American leaders about it. They expressed their views, and I expressed the view of CARICOM and Trinidad and Tobago. The president, incidentally, has appointed a special advisor, Senator Chris Dodd, who came down to see. I met with him on many occasions, and we're talking. So hopefully, in the not too distant future, we realize where we're at and what the outcome is. We're all hoping for an amicable outcome, and we are very much involved.
You mentioned your trip, Prime Minister, to Washington. What would you say would be the key benefits to Trinidad and Tobago that would have resulted from that trip, sir?
Well, the key benefits that we will listen to. The first hurdle you have to cross is to have your story told and be listened to, and there was great interest in what we had to say.
Prime Minister, the final question we have to ask you about the cannabis control bill would have been passed in Parliament recently. I just wanted to get your thoughts about the potential of the regional and local industry. Do you see it as a potential?
I would like, now that we are making the legislative openings, I would like to see the industry in the region grow and contribute to the economy because this has some potential. But I am not one of those who believe that there's this mountain of control of the business that we have. When it was illegal, we probably made a name for ourselves in some parts of the region in supplying certain brands of the product. Now that it is widely opened up and legal in larger economies, I am a little skeptical of the role that we can play in an industry of that nature, given the kinds of competition that we're up against. For me personally, it's not something that I have any experience in. I'm simply as an administrator dealing with it. And what I see as a role is niche marketing, brand and niche, because when I look at the scale on which these things are being produced and the level of technology and the investment being put into it in other countries, whether it's Australia, Mexico, the United States, I wonder what kind of industry small states like ours could have once it's opened up like that. I was growing up in a valley somewhere in California about 4 years ago, 2018 I think it was. And I was amazed I saw that there was this valley, probably like from here to Diego Martin or more, in covered, what do you call these covered? Greenhouses. Huge greenhouses, but from here to Diego Martin. And eventually I was moved out, what's going on there? Marijuana growing. And then I wonder, can we operate on that scale? And then if you look at what happens after it is grown, to convert it into a saleable product, especially the medicinal side of it, the scale at which it's being done, and that is only one little valley in a large state, across the border in Mexico, in Colorado. So it's a huge business that is already established, and we should look for some role in it. Like how we have different rum brands, I think it is. I mean, somebody will tell you that the largest volume of rum sold is not a Trinidad rum or a Guyana rum, right? So we market these rums that we have here as special niches. But the bulk rum, where rum is rum, we are way down on the list of rum sellers. And I suspect that a similar kind of situation may develop. Because when you look at the investment that they put in it, or is being put into it now, we are now talking about starting and opening up here, but there are some people who are already at the highest level of technology, not to mention the market that they have. So those are the kind of constraints, and I'm not overly optimistic, while I am cautiously optimistic that we can have a little niche in it.
Just a follow-up to that point, Prime Minister, is the intention or the idea for, let's say, subsidies for those who get into that when this is all properly established? And secondly, are you looking at large-scale farming, or will it be more smaller?
I couldn't answer that because that would depend on private sector entrepreneurship. So I wouldn't want to hazard a guess on that. No, it would be left up to the entrepreneurial skills of the private sector and those who invest. I tell you, nothing much is going to happen without significant investment.
Mr. Pim, we'd be interested to get your reaction to Minister Hines saying that there may be 12,000 illegal guns in Trinidad. Want to get your views on how they may be getting in. Is enough surveillance being done at the ports and so forth? And is there any hope with the US liaisons between ATF and the Grace Initiative that they're running? Please.
No matter how difficult the situation is, there is always hope. One cannot be addressing any situation from the standpoint of it being hopeless and expect to succeed. Yes, we are talking with the United States. In fact, we have not too long ago got them to come back into this country with an officer at an ATF office to help our people to be on top of it. We've got training. Our officers are exposed to increased training. One of the issues I raised last week with in the relevant court as a Homeland Security people is that much of the guns that come into Trinidad and Tobago come from the United States. And there are instances where U.S. authorities are in a better position to intercept these flows, and we are asking them to do more. And finally, how they come in? Every which way. Every which way. Every bay around us is open to the adventurous, and even the legal ports. You would have seen not too long ago, through the legal ports, through the normal aspect of trade, in containers, right, with legal goods, you have guns. And so therefore we cannot be complacent, and we cannot tell ourselves that it's hopeless. It's a constant battle. I mean, if you look at the amount of guns that we've taken off the street, that estimate that you just mentioned there tells you that, you know, we keep pushing uphill. We're pushing this rock up the hill all the time, because faster you take them off the street, other people, or even the same people, are attempting to bring more into the country. And therefore we have to fight it.
Is there anything we could do to discourage a gun culture here? I don't know if in popular music, popular videos and films, if a gun culture is being promoted, I don't know.
Well, the gun culture is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. It's a community that we are part of. Some people believe that more guns may bring even more security. More arms and ammunition in the hands of the population is more security. The facts don't bear that out. So we just have to keep trying everything and try to be better at it.
Prime Minister, on another issue, the Energy Minister's interview on CNN, Quest Means Business, there was an acknowledgement that with the present price of crude oil on the international market and natural gas, that Trinidad and Tobago is earning more revenue. He did say that, of course, this will be used to pay government's bills and so on, but I'm wondering, do you have any estimate in terms of how much more revenue Trinidad and Tobago is earning at this time?
It is not insignificant, but it is not a boom. Right? And it is helpful because, you know, it was 2020. In 2020, the budget of 2015 that went in 2016, we had a $13 billion deficit in that budget. Remember that? The very first budget. We had to find $13 billion to keep body and soul together here. And that was borrowings. And then we had a little less going forward until we got to COVID, when without COVID, we were on track to get close to a balanced budget. But COVID came, and once again, we had to go into borrowing again, huge amounts of monies to spend to handle the COVID situation. So what we have in hand is a large basket of debt. So if we get some more or some improvement on the revenue side, the first call is to make us a little better off on the debt side, because some of these debts are short-term debts, and prudence would require that you treat with them as such, because short-term means expensive debt. So if we get some more money, we can't open up new avenues of expenditure willy-nilly, right? Because some of those who will make negative comments of us now, we're making it all the time, they were saying that the issue, even as we were fighting for our lives in COVID, the issue was the debt burden and our ability or inability to service that debt, and we were therefore a failed state. That was the conversation. So if now that the circumstances have changed, for how long we don't know, and we get some revenue, that all that would have done is to improve our position, taking us backwards from the brink where that debt had taken us as a matter of essential response. We had to do with the collapse of the economy, and we had to do with the pandemic. Both of them drove us into significant borrowings. So if we are, the real problem we have now, the real problem we're having now is that this good price in the marketplace is happening at a time when we are at our lowest levels of production. That is a real problem, because the market price is very good. But if you're having a nice price but a low volume, you might get a little more, but you're not getting, you know, significantly more as if you were a major producer, because our production is low. And that is as a result of all our fields are mature fields, whether it's gas or oil. These are facts of life. Some people choose to disregard these facts and just say whatever you want. Feed on emotion, tell a lie, talk stupidness. But there are many of us in this country who face reality and know that responsible conduct is what is required. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. Thank you.